and don't have to
Okay.
have that.
There we go. Now we're on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So today we're having a conversation with Manny Cook. Some of you may know him as Manuel Cook. And then I've also found out, Manny, that you've got another Emmanuel, because they were talking like, who is that? I only know Manny. So anyway, we're talking with him today, a young man that some of you may or may not know, who has been very involved in getting North 24th Street as well as North Omaha, working with different agencies and organizations, the city of Omaha and so forth, in order to help revitalize North Omaha, particularly working on North 24th Street. And just a little background on Manny, and I'm probably going to refer to you as Manny because
that's what everyone calls me. That's what I go by. But
okay,
Manuel is I'm a junior, so, and I accept it 100%, but Manny just is a little bit easier and faster to say.
All right, then. Sounds good. Just to give some of you an idea and a little background on him, Manny is currently with Sparks right now, and has been involved in the city planning department. He worked with City of Omaha to get members and the community and organizations, so forth, to collaborate and be involved in different ongoing urban planning activities. Also, he was the founder. He's had many, as I said. He was the founder of The Study. And this was a fundraise where he over $55,000 to cover all the rent, utilities, improvements, and so forth. And from that, it ended up with Drips and Culture House. So he was involved in that. Also has been working with the Lund Company, property manager, Contemporary Arts of Omaha, just a lot of different background. And also the university, his education goes from the University of Nebraska. And I like the way you put that grade point average. Go ahead and hit yourself on the back. You let everybody know you were at the top.
I had that 3.9, almost a 4.0.
Yeah, I mean, so that's good. And I thought it was very interesting. You had some studies at the university in Netherlands.
Yep.
And how did that come about?
Well, so when I was studying urban studies here in Omaha, I got into those studies. I learned more about, different cities and different countries and how they do things. And one place I learned about was the Netherlands, which is, most people just know Amsterdam, but it's a whole country around that, right? In Europe. And they're just really known for their urban design, being efficient, their land use policies, good transportation, and on a lot of things they're ahead of the curve when it comes to like climate, housing, things like that, social programs to an extent. So yeah, so I was interested in that. So I thought, what better place to study than a place that seems to be doing things well. So I went there and learned a little Dutch and learned a lot of things. But yeah, that's how it happened.
What do you remember? What can you tell me in Dutch?
Let's see.
I won't know if it's the truth or not, but you can give me a sentence. I can tell you learned a whole lot, Manny, because you got to think about it.
Well, so for instance, I know there's like Groot means like the great market. So they have like every city has like markets in the center of the city, right? So there's the Groot market in every city, the big market center, and then there's also often the Vis market, which is fish market, right? There, other words, there's the Hoof station is like the main station, and alsjeblieft is please and thank you.
Okay, I'll let you off at that.
I can keep going. It's going to start
you're going to get yourself into trouble.
yeah. Right. It sounds like something else. There's no cursing in there yet, but yeah.
Well, that's good. Also, I hear that you are going to be acknowledged coming up here in February of 2022. You are going to be acknowledged in the Awards for Excellence in Public Service. And that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good at the top. What do you think? What would be your say, if they had to call you up and say, let's give a speech, what would you say about that being award for your work in the College of Public Affairs and Community Service?
Oh,
what does
man.
that mean to you?
I got that
Honored.
a week ago, and I've been trying to think about what I would say if I was going to say something. And usually I'm not super, I appreciate the awards and it's great to get the acknowledgement, but I mean, it's just, I'm just like everybody else, like I do it because I enjoy doing what I'm doing, and it's not that big a deal. So basically, I don't know what I would say. Yeah.
I'm really throwing you off guard here, but hey,
that's all right.
That's the way it is sometimes. So, we got enough background about Manny. And like I say, many of you have probably seen him around the 24th and Street Lake quarter there on the corner, Fabric Lab. And what does that really mean, Fabric Lab? Because I was like, when I first saw him, I'm like, why would somebody give that a name, Fabric Lab? So tell us, what does that mean?
Yeah, so the idea behind the name is when we talk about fabric, talking about the fabric of community, and also, again, from my background in urban planning and interest in urbanism, is just you look at streets and the way cities are built out, it looks like a fabric oftentimes. And so this lab is a place where you design and experiment and are creative about things. So it's about being creative about the built environment, the urban environment, the community, of course, and weaving those things together in a space. So that's the reason behind the name, and that's the main purpose of what we're trying to do is really, create a space for community, this community, Black people to have the opportunity to learn more about urban planning, design, architecture, and that way we build not only this corner or this corridor, but other places in the city and beyond, right? So I'll end on that. I could keep going about it. Yeah.
One other thing that people have heard or kind of put your name with, connected it with, is the bicycle trail and the walking. I haven't heard it said so much people talk about walk, but the big thing is we're going to have a bicycle trail, and we don't even ride the bicycles. So what is this bicycle? Can you kind of elaborate? What is the bicycle, where it's going to be? Because I think people are thinking, well, I know, because some people have said to me, we're going to have this biking trail down 20. That's not where it's going to actually be, as I'm not on 24th Street. So can you kind of give us a little background and where the actual location is going to be for the bicycle trail?
I'll start with a little bit of the background, because although I like to think that I thought of the idea all on my own, I didn't. It's been in like the city plans. It's been in North Omaha plans since back to, I want to say 2003, the North Omaha Development Plan. It was an idea that came from that community engagement when they did the whole village revitalization plan. There was part of that, the outcome, one of the outcomes from that as an idea, something that community wanted to see. And basically the route is along Highway 75. So there's a lot of unused space along the highway. So utilizing that and creating public health infrastructure. So not just riding bikes. People say that because, you think of trail. That's where your mind goes, riding a bike or something like that. But it's really more so like walking trail, bike trail, of course. You can do a scooter. But, as I, took that general idea from just having a trail and green space along the highway, running from basically Bud Crawford's gym down here to 24th and Lake, and beyond. We'll get there later, but it's working with the community. I knew it would be more than just a walking trail, a biking trail, that sort of thing, and most definitely what it's really progressed into is a cultural trail, because everyone wants to see more art, ways to recognize the history that has come out of this community. There's probably books and books of history that could be associated with North Omaha, and especially 24th and Lake area, 30th Street area. So how do we recognize historic figures, places, events? So that's going to be a big part of it. I mean, we already have fundraised and money for additional art projects. Like you can see in this picture, this is a mural we did on Bud Crawford's gym. We're working on a potential another one with Mount Moriah. There'll be space along the trail itself, a little mural wall where there'd be opportunities for lots of community members and artists from the community to develop new public art. So all those things.
So when we're saying, you say the Bud Crawford gym, which is kind of located right there off of 30th and Sprague Street.
Yeah.
Is that so? We're going to have this trail that's going to be coming around that boulevard and down to 20.
So on the end where Bud Crawford's gym is, there's actually, they need to work on a little bit, but you would have a trail that would go on Paxton Boulevard all the way to Fontenelle Park, which is somewhat existent now. That it needs some attention. And they're working on a potential Beltline trail that would go around Malcolm X and then connect to almost to 40th and Hamilton area. And then this one, the one I'm working on, would go basically north-south from, let's just generalize and say 30th and A to 24th and Lake. And we're starting to look at like another potential connection to connect that into downtown. So by the end of it, from the riverfront, Council Bluffs to nearly Benson, you'd be able to walk, run, get around in other ways than a car. So really, I think one of the important things, there's a couple important things that I just want to throw out in case you don't ask me about them, is
Go ahead.
The public health part of it. I mean, it was I guess even brought to light more so during COVID. Like those pre-existing conditions have a lot to do with sedentary lifestyles, because people, especially in our community, unfortunately, because we don't have that public health infrastructure, are able to get out and move and walk and run and do those things that keep you generally healthy. Other communities across the country have these things, and they're able to do that, meet with friends, and have a positive alternative, for all ages. But then environmentally, I mean, the more ways you can get around without polluting, the better. So it's a alternative. It's not forcing you out of a car or anything like that. It's something you can do. And another benefit, speaking of cars, is you won't have as many people in the street that you have to worry about being behind and getting upset with them, worrying about the bike lanes and all the things that sometimes people worry about. So yeah.
Well, the big thing I hear is, because of misinformation is, people are talking about, we're going to have a bike lane on North 24th Street. Like, we don't have enough problems, with traffic and so forth. And so I think it's important that people understand, and at least I'm hearing that that's not what we're looking at doing, or you're looking at doing, is putting bike trails, bike lane on North 24th Street. Is
right.
That like it's in?
Well, yeah. So like for two reasons is one, it's safer to not be on the street, especially I'll start with this. I support bike lanes. I know some people don't, and that's fine. Mm-hmm. Disagreements are all right. But I know from riding a bike, and I know from other people that I ride bikes with, it doesn't feel safe. Like you're not gonna let your child or your mother or grandmother maybe or someone like that ride their bike on 24th Street or really any street in Omaha, because people don't know how to drive. It's just what it is. So this is off the street, so there's that separation. So it's like, like a wide sidewalk. You don't feel that pressure if someone might run you over. Right. So it feels safer, and it's safer, and more people will use it that way. And it's a cultural thing too, because like not everyone wants to wear the spandex. That's not how I ride a bike. Anyway, so there's that part of it. And then, from people who are in cars, like it's not a issue anymore, right? So that's why I wanted to push this project or support this project or lead this project, because I can see the many benefits behind it. So.
And I think that's is that misinformation we have to learn and distinguish the trail from the bike lanes. Yeah. They're two different things. See? And I think people are not listening maybe, or maybe it's just not being distributed clearly enough to say that this is, as you just said a moment ago, purpose is to get a person to a safe area is so that they're not involved with cars. And that's what a trail does, because it's totally separate from being in the line of cars. It's not in the traffic. You're away from the traffic. So, I think that's a different way to approach it, is to clarify the difference between the trail and a bike lane.
Yeah.
And all people are hearing when you say we're going to get this, they're not understanding, I don't think, the difference between trail and a lane.
Yeah, and
you got to do a little bit more education on that.
Yeah, well, and I picked that up, and it's that's definitely it. And I think some of that is if you're introduced to bike lanes, anything that has to do with bikes is probably going to feel like you're talking about bike lanes, and I get that. And yeah, that's a clear delineation: is bike lanes are on the road and trails are off the road.
Off the road. There's a good way to put it. Quick to the point. One of the other things I wanted to talk to you about, because we've had many conversations, well, two of them, and we'll try to get them in, part of it in one this time, and then our next conversation, is housing. We've had many discussions. We've been at several meetings together there talking about housing and also displacing, which people are starting to, I think, understand more is what's happening, or what even can happen. I'll say, I believe it is already happening, but people like to say what can possibly happen. But I think we need a lot more affordable housing, and housing that is going to be around things such as bike trails, areas where people are going to be able to do their shopping, to be kind of like the one stop. You want to be in your neighborhood. I think Walmart was a good example. It showed they started building these big warehouses, and they found out, you know what, people don't want, you want it where you live. You want it to be in the area. You want to be able to, you'd like to be able to go there to work. You'd like to be able to go there for recreation and so forth. And in Omaha, and particularly in North Omaha, we don't have that. We don't have housing, and it seems like more affordable housing is becoming less and less. And one of the, we had an earlier conversation, is when we don't have this and we get, how should I say, the developers coming in and developing housing that's not affordable and not within our reach, we're being displaced. So what is your feelings and comments? I know we've had them in together, but what do you think, what needs to happen for housing? And then what about, is anybody taking a look to see what about the displacement of individuals?
Yeah. I guess I would start by saying, the first thing is, what you hit on is that access to things generally, whether it's a store or parks. What it boils down to is a quality environment, right? You want to have a livable environment. And just to go back to theory and such, if you improve the livability of your environment, they say we're all a product of our environment, for better or worse. And that can be many layers, but let's just look at the built environment. So I'm talking about structures, places, and things like that. If you improve the quality of the built environment, you can improve the quality of people's lives. So you can, be more active. Your health is increased. That also, being active in a community makes you more active in community. So your social connections are usually better, and so you have, more community is maybe one way to put it, right? So that's the goal. And how do you get to that through housing? It's, developing not only good housing, a range of different income types and things like that, but it is about also acknowledging that you can't just put housing anywhere and it will just work out. You have to think about those things in between, like sidewalks, trails, access to grocery stores, access to transit, transportation, all those things that make a quality environment. So that, and then I think once, if that's the focus, then you look at, well, you don't want to displace people, right? I'm just going to jump to that, the displacement part, because I know that's the
right here. Because we have, like I said, we've had that conversation, and I don't think it's getting as much discussion, and it hasn't hit some individuals to understand with what happens when development comes in and there's no input into it. There's no community involvement, what's going to happen. So jump right on into it.
Yeah. So if you want to improve a place and you're doing it for the people who live there, you don't want to displace the people who are living there. Else
Right.
You've not accomplished your goal. You might have improved the environment, but you haven't done it for the people who are there. So you don't want to displace people. And so to break down displacement, or gentrification as a lot of people call it, what happens is any type of investment that improves a place increases its value, right? If you paint your house and get new windows and things like that, the value of your house is technically better, right? Same thing with the community. So the way that happens is your taxes go up because the value's gone up. Your rent goes up because the value's gone up. So those things are what can lead people to be displaced, right? So without any policies in place to prevent that, or any, or additional affordable housing, or maintaining affordable housing that exists in an area, that's just how the system works, if you will, right? And you don't even need to have like new investment for that to happen. Like you were saying, like it's already happening. And I'm not just saying like Blackstone, because we already know that that's been gentrified and displacement has happened there, but everywhere in Omaha right now at this time, one of the problems is when you don't have enough housing, you have a lack of supply. You still have that demand, and that raises the price of your housing, whether you're renting or you're looking to buy a new house or you own a house. The value of it has increased because so many people need a place to stay. So without any protections from increased taxes on people, or especially increased rent, that's the main way that people are displaced. Then
transportation
get displaced. Yeah. Like it just, that's how it happens. So I say all that to say, I guess the solution is a systemic one. It has to be policy. That's the main way. The only other way you can like try and remedy the situation is with more affordable housing and a range of affordability options. So low income, middle income, because right now people in Omaha who are the median income, so like 68,000 or so per household, can't find places that are affordable. And that's a huge problem, right? So that's where we're at. I don't know. And so the solution is building more housing, affordable housing, but then also
but how do you say what's affordable?
Right.
Because what's affordable to you, it may not be affordable to me or affordable to John Jones or whoever. And I think we've been throwing that term around very loosely. And you having been involved with the city, I don't know, has there ever been a definition of what has been considered to be affordable housing?
Yeah, like the federal definition is a third of your income. So if you make, let's keep the numbers basic. If you make $1,000 a month, affordable housing would be $300 a month, right? Including your utilities. And they have what's affordable for transportation is, I think it's like 15%. So like, that's what is considered affordable. So if you make more, that number is bigger. If you make less, that number is smaller. And that's why you have to have, affordable housing for people who make 30% of the median income, affordable housing for people who make, the median income, or let's just call it the average income for a place. Yeah, so that's how you define it, because it is a sliding scale, right? So
it is, but it's very easy to use that. But what happens so many times, particularly, I'm going to speak from the North Omaha area, is, I know you've said it's all over Omaha, but from the North Omaha area, is it's like the middle where you're trying to make it and you're actually working and living poor. There's two incomes, two jobs per income, and you're still just right there holding on. So you're not poor enough. I always say it's like you're not poor enough to get to the low income housing, and then you're not making enough to get to the other. But yet and still you want the American dream of a home, And so, you say policy. What kind of policies do we need? How do we make policy to be able to handle the middle? Because the middle's getting left out again. They're
Yeah.
bearing the brunt of everything.
Yeah. Well, if you look at what there's funding for, you have funding for low income housing. That system set up and it has been working relatively all right. Obviously could use improvements, but it exists, right? You can get low income housing tax credits, so on and so forth. And you have the most of that in North Omaha, by the way, because of redlining and the lack of investment of other types. So what's happened is over time, it's kind of reconcentrated low income housing, which isn't bad on its own, but it becomes sort of an issue. It becomes an issue if you don't have also middle income housing, because if you're, like you said, in the middle and you want to live in North Omaha, you might not find a house that you can get into, right? Because you might not income qualify. And then what happens, since it was a redlined area, or if you're a person of color, Black person, and you want to go get that financing, you won't qualify, or you won't be able to get enough money to build what you want to build in the area that you want to build it, because they say it has this depreciated value that was set in place through redlining. So, and that's why traditionally you haven't seen a lot of investment in North Omaha, because no one wanted to do it. They didn't see the numbers working, and a big part of that was banks wouldn't loan to them. Redlining. While redlining ended in 1968, nothing was done about it. So it's like if someone burns down your house and then they don't do anything about it, they haven't solved the problem. Their house is still burnt down, right? So that's basically what happened in North Omaha, and it's just now.
And it's still happening. Redlining, they're saying, oh no, we don't do that. Yes, you do. It's very common. Some people will probably say, oh no, that's not true, but I'm just going to say it because I know it is true, is that redlining still exists. And you know what else? It still exists among certain organizations that build housing in North Omaha. It's still going to be certain individuals that qualify for that home, and it still exists. And you're not having somebody, I know someone who recently had very good credit, was making enough to be able to afford to buy a house and have it built. But they had all these other little things. You're really close to this or you're really close to that. And then if you would have taken an individual who was not Black and went to that, they would have gotten that house. In fact, I know someone who had a foreclosure on their first house, and they ended up going to get a second house that was further west, but they were Black.
Well, and so, there's just the blatant racism side of it, where, people will make a decision based on that. And there's no doubt about that. And that has never gone away. But then there's also just the geographic. So if you go to get a loan, or if you want to develop a property and get financing, they'll look at the comparable, homes or buildings in your area to see how much they should finance you for. And the property values have been depressed so much in North Omaha. If you go out and you say, I want to build I don't know, $150,000 house, the banks will say, well, we'll give you, it seems like the comparable value of homes in the area is $50,000. So we'll loan you $50,000. You're not going to be able to build a house with that much. So you're not going to do it there. If you look at a lot or a space somewhere in West Omaha, they'll say the comparable houses are this, and maybe you qualify to say you qualify. So then you'll get financing to be able to build a comparable house in that market. So there's that problem too, which exists, and it creates what they call the financing gap, where you can't get enough money to build something or rehab a building in North Omaha.
And even the rehab, they don't want to invest in, they don't want to invest in being able to rehab the property. So kind of what kind of policies how do we go about it, like from the community's perspective? How do we go about getting policy changed so that we can be able to do those different things, to buy a house? Or, I think there's a lot of people who would really like to stay in North Omaha. And we see these outside developers come in and they take and buy, a lot of the We Buy houses and all that. They'll buy the house, fix it back up, redo it and everything. And I know a house particularly sold for $128,000. And they didn't purchase it for that amount. They only purchased it for 60, probably put in 20. So there's a $40,000 profit. But how do we get, what can the community do to be able to change this? Or can we change it?
The number one thing is just start advocating for anti-displacement policies, because
how do we go about advocating for this?
Well, I mean, the place where you do it would be at the legislature, because it has to do with property taxes. And from my understanding, that's where it would have to happen for it to trickle down to city level and things like that. I would say expanding the homestead exemption, which is a law, if you will, that exists now, where I think it's people who are 65 or older or military veterans. Basically what they do is they'll freeze your taxes at where they're at, and they'll only increase with inflation. So like the 2% a year or whatever it is that year. And that keeps you relatively stable with a fixed income is the idea behind that. I think something like that could be expanded to geographically is probably the way it would have to happen to protect people who own their homes now. And maybe it's not just 65 or older, this like pull that down to anybody. Maybe it's in formerly redlined areas, maybe it's broader.
There's a good idea.
Yeah.
Formally and subformally still redline, but we'll go with the formally part. That's an idea.
Yeah, and I think that would at least stop the bleeding, if you will. So as things continue to increase in price and value and such, people who are living in the community because they want to live there, not because they're just going after the American dream, if you will. I'm going to categorize it like this. I buy a house, I stay in for a while, the value of it goes up, I sell it for more, and I've have made that equity back. If you're living in a place to live there, you get the tax break, right? If you're in it for the market, well, you probably won't want that tax break. So there's that. I think that's like one main thing that people could get behind and push for. Other than that, getting really strong on affordable housing is another thing.
Who do we need to, as the community, and I keep saying we because I feel like, it's the community and I'm part of it, is where do we go and who do we get behind to, I hate saying enforce, but get behind to help regulation or to make this known is to push for more housing or changing some of the legislature. We got to go to the state. What can we do locally at the city level?
I mean, the affordable housing, well, at the city level, what they should do is they should get another bond, if it's a bond, or raise taxes on someone who has the money to pay the taxes, and create a fund like they did for the street repair. And then focus those funds in formerly redlined areas or in North Omaha generally to, one, help maintain and fix up the houses, and then two, create affordable housing would be one way of doing it at a city government level. I also know that there's a big conversation in philanthropy, and I know a lot of people aren't pro philanthropy, and that's fine, but I know that there's been conversations of them stepping in and trying to help by filling some of those gaps or providing some funding to existing homeowners and renters even to, try to help. Funds, money is needed to do these things. That's what it comes down to, dollars. And I think right now with the infrastructure bill coming down the way, I think ARPA funds and things like that, these are opportunities we won't ever have again, probably in our lifetimes, to secure funds to right a wrong. I mean, like redlining, racism. I mean, you're not going to fix all of the racism, but you can try to undo the impacts of redlining, right? And try to, restore the equity that was lost. And I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent on this, but it's not just the fact that areas were redlined. These are people who, like white people who were able to buy homes out west and create that value and get that equity and put their kids through school and invest in their businesses because of the property that they own. We didn't get that.
No.
And so my thoughts on it is not only are we owed that, but just like everything, we're owed that with interest, right? Just like anybody who's going to talk finance and such, everything has interest on it. So I think that's what is needed, and that's the direction. Like right now, to be honest, I don't think there's anything happening at the local level that's directly going towards addressing these issues. And at the state level, I mean, I have hope there that some people will try and put some things forward. But that's, if we're about anything right now, I think that's what we have to be about, is those things. And then using those funds and that money to build the community and, to create a little more livable environment. So all those other things we talked about as well. So
I partly agree with that, is that but it still doesn't get, and I know many people have said, what can we do? And do we need to be able to put more pressure maybe on our local officials, our city council members who pass all these different approvals? And I know it's going to be difficult because Omaha is based on a charter, which is a two-party charter. It's the mayor and the city council. So it's direction. So what can we do? Do you have any suggestions, being in, with your background, that people can get behind to try to get this done? And I know maybe it's to put pressure on, and how do we put that pressure on getting something out of the HARPA funds or the infrastructure monies that are really going to be designated? I know that there's been several meetings, and we both have been at those, regarding the ARPA funds. Can we come up with an ideal really to put forth and then get, the community behind it? Do you have a suggestion as to how to approach that?
Yeah, so this isn't going to be detailed because I don't have the detailed version of this, but what I would say, more so for infrastructure funding, is maybe a starting point would be, say, what was the street maintenance fund? Was it like 180 million or something, or
it was pretty close to the 200.
Let's just say it was $200 million, right? Let's just use that as a ballpark number. Let's say invest $200 million in affordable housing, and also funds that can go to existing homeowners as a grant, so it's not a loan, you don't have to pay it back.
You're not paying it back.
Yeah, and then also being intentional of, like, for projects that are happening in North Omaha and other places, really broadening that net. So it's not just, I'm not going to call any developers out, but it's not just the people who are doing development in Blackstone and other places like that are building the houses. It's an opportunity to what's it called, for economic development. So you have more people who have Black people from our community who can be developers and be building the houses and the other things and taking part in some of this construction and design. I think the design part of it as well. And then after these funds are gone, not only will you have houses that are built more affordability, better environment for everyone to live in, but you'll also have increased the capacity of the workforce, of the businesses, and so on. So it's like the short-term and long-term way of addressing things. So at least $200 million to go into affordable housing, and ideally North Omaha, South Omaha too. They have similar issues as well. But like you said, I know we're focused more on North Omaha right now. So
that's right, my main focus. How do you think? And I'm probably going to put you on the spot here and might get you into some trouble. But we know of this development that's coming up for 75 North. It's doing the projects what most people are saying is just replacing the projects. We went sideways, horizontal, and now we're going back to vertical. And people are going to be displaced. Will they have, what do you think about them having the first right to the new development? because they were originally displaced when the other part of the projects were torn down. Now, Spencer Street is what I'm referring to, is going to be torn down. And the new development is already going to be started for 75 North up off of 30th Street and so forth. What's your call on that, or talk, or what do you think about, is there going to be, and I know you know more about, what about the displacement? Are those individuals going to have first? What do you,
Yeah, so
aren't they old? We go back to what we're old. Aren't they old the first right to be, instead of, another party is like Wintergreen's coming. What about individuals there? Are they going to have first right? Or will this be coming outsiders of the community, people who haven't lived in the community?
Yeah, well, I think with Spencer Homes, I think that, from my understanding, at least when I was at the scene, what was in the plan was that people would have the first right of return, right? So the idea is that when they knock down Spencer Homes next year sometime, that they'll have the housing at 75 North ready. And if in the meantime, they'll have a voucher that they would live off site, but then could return to everyone could return to what they build where Spencer Homes is, and then have a space if they want to. And so, yeah, I think that's in the plan. And I think that's something that was learned from past demos of, or redevelopments, or just demos of housing projects, all over the country, is you can't just get rid of someone's house and be like, good luck, right? So I believe that's in there, and I definitely support that. Now, when you talk about Wintergreen, first I'll just say, I think that area is haunted, but that's my own personal thing. But I think that it's tough in that situation, because how do you find and track the people who lived there before they got rid of Wintergreen, and find them and communicate with them? So it's almost one of those situations where even if you weren't displaced by Wintergreen, I guess what I'm saying is, right now, people do not feel like those who are living in North Omaha, or have lived in North Omaha, surrounding areas, maybe not actually in the Wintergreen, but it's like, we're not going to be the first right to those homes. I know the developer has said they're going to we're not going to be the first right. And I have a real problem with their development, is that, I think what we've talked about before too has been the housing design, the design that's going in there. I don't see that as, I'm not a designer, so maybe I'm way off, but when you have houses that you say you're going to have 5 bedrooms, most of the families are there. There's going to be some for that are single family, or nesters, or over 55 or whatever. But, when you have that many bedrooms, 5 bedrooms, 6 bedrooms, even 3, you're talking about, and then you have a 1-car garage, that just burns me. You got a 1-car garage in this society. How many people have 1 car? Right.
So, I don't think the consideration has really been in the design of the housing that's going in. And doesn't that play in a very important part in redevelopment of housing?
Well, so I say first with the Wintergreen area, it's like other places I could see. I don't know where I start on this. I'll say first, generally, I'm not like a big garage advocate, so that's where we disagree a little bit. But I will say, if you did have like 5 bedrooms, it seems like you would need to have probably more than 1 garage or parking area. That makes sense, absolutely.
Because you're going to have cars all up and down the street, and that's not that's narrow parking.
Right. And when it comes to design, like, I'm an advocate for like alleyway parking or garages and things like that. So again, you don't have stuff right on the street, but those are the details. I'd say location matters, because like, where you could build, like, let's say 24th or 30th Street, or anything that's on a bus route or a main street and has a little bit more access to things, you can say, okay, well, there's other ways to get around.
Right.
There's not a bus route over there.
No.
And there's not even a sidewalk, I don't think, that connects to anything. And even if it does, it's really far away. People only are going to walk up to a quarter mile to get to things.
Mhm.
All that said, you know, yeah, the design and location are important. And I would say that, at least like when you get to like a 5-bedroom, you probably would want to have 2-car garages or 2 parking spaces or space for 2 cars, whether it's a covered, uncovered, whatever. You can park somewhere that's not necessarily on the street. But like if it was like a 1-2-bedroom house, well, a 1-car garage might work. Or like, once you get into apartments and things, like having a parking space for the person who's there seems to make sense. But yeah, it's really context specific, I think. And I think you're right on this one, that over there, it's a place that's going to rely on car transportation. So
yeah, there's no other transportation you have
right.
that's in that area. So why do you, I look at it and I'm like, okay, this comes before the planning board and city. Why is this even going to be allowed? The design, yeah, it's great. You're going to build housing. I'm not objecting to that. And I don't oppose that. But I think that based upon location and transportation, the design of the homes that will be built are very important.
Mhm.
And I don't think that's really been taken into consideration the way it should be. It's just like giving them a pass and, oh, happy day, because you should be happy because you're putting some homes over there. And I think we have to get over that, well, it's better than nothing attitude, because what's better than nothing attitude is not always the best. So I don't agree with that. I wanted to get one other thing before, and we'll go into our next, and I hope people will tune in, because our next section I want to talk with Manny about is going to be the Forever North plan, that we've heard different things, and I want him to be able to give us information instead of misinformation, so that we can make our comments reality and total, it be really what we're talking about versus what we keep hearing from one to another. So that's going to be part 2. So you got to make sure you tune into part 2.
Yep.
But before I go, because you're going to be having a town hall meeting coming up December 9th, Thursday. Can you give a little information on that, as time and the location, because I want to make sure you could have good attendance.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure I have the time and location down. So it's 6 o'clock, December 9th, here at Fabric Lab, 2514 North 24th Street. And we have Terrell McKinney coming in to talk about all things that he's working on. And it's hosted by Preston Love. So I'm facilitating the space, and I support the town hall, but Preston's going to be the one doing the talking and facilitating that night. And Terrell as well. So it'd be a good opportunity to talk, and ask questions more about housing, about ARPA funds, infrastructure funds, the upcoming legislative session, things you want to see at the state level. Maybe anti-displacement policies might be a good thing to bring up. All that sort of thing. So that's this next Thursday.
So we want to make sure that people understand you can get out at least, and we have to get out to be able to participate. We have to make, I know Thursday you might have this or that, but sometimes we have to make time for other things that are going to help us all the way down the line of life. Will that be a virtual too? Will people be able to?
I think it's just in person. Yeah, I think we're just doing this one in person. That's a good idea to make them virtual. Well, Preston might live stream it. I think he usually live streams them. So I would just check Preston Love's Facebook page and you'll catch it there. I'm gonna
everybody doesn't have Facebook. I keep telling people, I know everybody doesn't do Facebook.
Right.
But we'll try to get that out and get it to some other areas that talk about it. But I want to thank you so much for your time. As I said to everyone, we can't get everything that I've been talking with Manny about in one session. So that's the reason why I'm dividing it up into several parts. And our next one will definitely be about Forever North, because I think it's really important. I've been doing some reading and marking studies, so I have some questions for him on that. Oh, yes. You know, I didn't ask for that information for nothing.
Right.
So I think, and you'd be kind of surprised. Some of the things I don't necessarily agree with everything, but I do agree with some. I think that's really things that people can get in their mind, because there's some more misinformation and misconception of understanding what that project really means, or what the term really means. And one other thing I did forget, I had it over here. There's a bus tour, North Omaha bus tour coming up. So maybe if we can mention that before we leave.
Yeah, so me and Preston and Jaquine are working on a bus tour, trying to get some of the elected officials, community members together so that we can talk about development that's going on 24th Street, the importance of the history. And, you know, I think that's one of the things that it's easier to talk about a place when you're there and to point at the thing and what's happening there. And people usually make a connection that way, because I could say, you know, the union's doing a black box theater, or, you know, Miranda Adams is working on a building on 24th and Grant. And that might sound good, but then at the end of it, where is that, and what is it, and that sort of thing. So that's what we're going to be doing, and really trying to, you know, pull all those things together and really stress the importance of maintaining the integrity of the history and culture.
Can people sign up for that, or is that just, as some say, the selected few? Or...
So this one is the selected few, because we only have so much space on the bus. But I know Preston is planning on doing more bus tours going forward. So we got to start somewhere, right? So that's where we're starting. And then, you know, there'll be more tours where there's 24th Street. I'm sure there's tours to do on 30th Street. There's tours to do on Ames. There's tours to do in downtown and all these different places. You know, so this is the first of many tours, but there's only so many spaces on the bus. So.
Got it. Well, again, thank you so much, Nanny, for helping me out on this. And as I said, I'm looking forward to, and you have agreed that we can have several sessions. We didn't have to get everything in on one. So we will be back and see what else we can talk about. And if anybody has any ideas, you can send them over, and we can ask Manny about them or discuss those particular topics. So thanks again.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll see you the next one.
All right. See you next time.
Thanks.
All right. Bye.